There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, and one who feared God and shunned evil. And 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him. Also his possessions were 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and a very large household, so that this man was the greatest of all the people of the East. And his sons would go and feast in their houses, each on his appointed day, and would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. So it was, when the days of feasting had run their course, that Job would send and sanctify them, and he would rise early in the morning and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, "It may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." Thus Job did regularly. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where do you come?" So Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil?" So Satan answered the Lord and said, "Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge around him, around his household, and around all that he has on every side? You've blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But now stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." And the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, all that he has is in your power. Only do not lay a hand on his person." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. Now there was a day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And a messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing and the donkeys feeding beside them, when the Sabaeans raided them and took them away. Indeed, they killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another also came and said, "The fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another also came and said that the Chaldeans formed 3 bands, raided the camels, and took them away. Yes, and killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you. While he was still speaking, another also came and said, "Your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And suddenly a great wind came from across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house. And it fell on the young people, and they are dead. And I alone have escaped to tell you." Then Job arose, tore his robe, and shaved his head, and he fell to the ground and worshipped. And he said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." In all this Job did not sin, nor did he charge God with wrong. Just a couple of days ago, there was a tragedy at West Oak High School. A young student walking into a classroom collapsed. This student, it was said of her that she was just as beautiful on the inside as she was on the outside. A pleasure, a blessing to be around. And you know, the question is often asked, why do things like this happen? We read the passage of Job there in chapter 1. Job was a good man. He was probably one of the most righteous in his day. The Bible says he was one of the greatest in his day. And that refers both to his social status as well as his spiritual position with God. Yet Job experienced the worst day any man could ever experience. In one single day, he lost all 10 of his children. In one single day, he lost many of his servants. And so much that Job had in this world that many would see every day, he lost. But most of all, he lost those most dear to him. How do you explain this kind of tragedy? Why do good things Why do bad things happen to good people? There's no simple explanation. In all my years of pastoring, I saw so much tragedy and so much heartache. I've done funerals for little babies. I've done funerals for husbands who tragically lost their lives on the job at work. I've done funerals for uncles who died after many years of walking with God. And they died unexpectedly, a very painful death. Folks, I don't know why good things happen or why bad things happen to good people. But I do know this. God has a purpose. God has a reason. And what I used to always tell people, and what I want to tell you today, as we try to understand this tragedy at West Oak High School, and as we remember Sierra Sims, what I want to say to you today is this. Sierra was such a beauty on the inside. God was ready for her to come home. It was time for her to go. That's painful for her parents, for her close friends, her classmates. It's so painful. Yet, when you think of where Sierra is today, and when you think of the fact that God must have seen something so beautiful in her, that he said, come on, Sierra, come on home. Think of all the pain she now has been spared. Think of all the heartache that she has now been spared. Think of all the many days she would have cried over the loss of some other loved one in her life, or all the many days her body might have ached because of some illness, or even long-term or fatal illness that could have overtaken her body later in life. Now she's been spared of all that. She had a beautiful young life here on earth, those short years, yet I know she lived it so full. She is no longer with us here physically, but spiritually and in our hearts, of course she is. She's here. And she's with her Father in his physical presence today. Just like we saw her here just a few days ago, now she is in that same physical presence with the Father. If I could encourage you with any one verse today, the Bible says in Psalms chapter 37, I believe, it says that God is near to the broken-hearted. Today, we are all broken-hearted. And I hope that you'll just draw near to God, do what Job did. On the day of his most painful tragedy, Job cried out to the Lord. It says, he fell on his face and he worshiped God. That's our only hope in times of pain. Worship God. We won't fully know the answers until we get to where Sierra is today. And then she and all the saints and the Father and Jesus will explain to us just exactly why Sierra had to come home so early. And you know what, folks? If we could truly see where Sierra is today, we wouldn't bring her back, even if we could. Draw near to God, and he'll draw near to you. I love you all. I hope you'll share this with your friends, and I hope it helps somebody. I'll talk to you soon.